Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Half Court Press. He's Wilson Moore. I'm Jon Walker, and we're virtual this week.
We are.
Happy Selection Sunday to all who celebrate. We're a day late because we're recording this on Monday, but we didn't get to talk to everybody on Selection Sunday, and we now have a bracket. And Wilson, the madness is upon us. We're going to
It
talk
is.
about what all that means for Nebraska, and certainly what it means for Creighton moving forward. But before we dive into all of that, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. This past week was a little bit lighter for me than it was for you, obviously. So after all that, I'm feeling pretty rejuvenated and just excited for what is to come. It is the best time of the year. It is. Yeah, I don't think it gets any better than March and first week into the NCAA tournament.
No, I certainly don't either. And let's just start right there, Wilson, because Creighton, ironically enough, is going to kick off the whole darn thing.
Yeah,
So the Jays are going to play underseeded, eighth seeded Louisville in Lexington, Kentucky at 11:15 a.m. Central on Thursday. Now, the first four games will happen on Tuesday and Wednesday, sure, but that first game on Thursday is like opening the first gift on Christmas morning.
yeah,
And that's going to be Creighton and Louisville to get this thing going, to start the dance. And it's going to be a heck of a game. I was really I was genuinely shocked that one, Louisville was an eighth seed, as I think
yeah,
most people were, and two, that Creighton uh, was scheduled to play the Cards nonetheless.
yeah.
For if I since we're digital today, I can do this because I can show it onto I can just turn my phone around. So I just gotten back and was watching the selection show with my girlfriend, and she recorded my reaction to Creighton drawing Louisville in Lexington. And that I was in utter shock, Wilson,
Yeah.
because I couldn't believe that Louisville was an eighth seed again, and one that Creighton was going to have to play a third straight road game when these games mean the absolute most this time of year.
Yeah.
Backtrack just a little bit for anyone who's lived under a rock. I don't think anyone listening to this here podcast does, but if you're by chance Patrick Starr, then you wouldn't know that Creighton almost ran the three-game gauntlet at the Garden. Fended off DePaul in double overtime, and a second substandard performance against the Blue Demons in 3 weeks, I think it was, in 2 weeks. And this one almost cost the Jays. That would have been a pretty egregious loss with Selection Sunday looming. Maybe it would have been better to drop to a 10, Wilson. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, that's not what happened, because then the Jays, after they gutted out a double overtime classic with DePaul, they played UConn and Store South a little more than 24 hours, a little less than 24 hours later, and beat the back-to-back national champs at their home away from home with a pretty fitting lasting image to end that night, I would
That
say.
that was awesome. That is, I know people got upset. UConn got upset, which, man, if there was ever a guy who does not have the right to get mad at someone for displaying some questionable, I don't, my point is Dan Hurley, like, of all people, cannot be getting mad at that. But like, to me, that's what sports, that is what rivalry is all about, and that was awesome. I love seeing that.
I loved it too. I talked to Jemiah Neal in Creighton's locker room after that, after he left the press conference on Friday night. And, he said, you got to understand, I was on the other side of that. Like, I was coached by a Hurley when I was at Arizona State. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of
That's
that.
a really
And he
good
was
point.
like, so he was like, when I say I got lost in the moment, I genuinely got lost in the moment. I was on the other side of that for 3 years.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't even thought of that. And that and you throw that down. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely, you do.
like a month ago, Dan Hurley um, beat Creighton in Omaha for the first time and celebrated like it.
Yeah.
Celebrated accordingly. Like turned, walked to mid, shook hands, walked to mid court, waved at the entire arena.
Two rings,
Um,
Baldy.
2 rings, Baldy. 2 rings, 2 rings, Baldy. And then in the post-game press conference, I asked him how gratifying it was to have that moment at the end. And he said, I just wish there were more people in the stands. I wish there would have been more people in the
That
stands.
is see,
So
that is
like,
so great. Like that is what this stuff
and
is all
and
about.
and that's okay because if you beat Creighton in Omaha, somewhere you've never won, somewhere that's really tough to win, you do that, right? Just like if you go into UConn's home away from home and you beat the back-to-back national champs on Friday night at the Garden, you throw down in the last few seconds.
Absolutely, you do.
So I don't think it was done. Look, we got a Mike Patterson performance behind me. He just walked by, but I don't think it was done with any malice. But Jemiah Neal has taken all three UConn matchups this season personally because UConn, more so than most teams in the Big East, have really, 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 as you've seen, Wilson, tried to force Creighton into that. Hey, we'll take away Ryan Kalkbrenner, we'll take away Stephen Ashworth, and we're going to force Jemiah Neal to beat us. Well, when they played the first time, Jemiah had a career high 24 and beat the Huskies in stores. Didn't have as good of a game the second time, and that's a large part of why Creighton lost.
Yeah.
And Jemiah took it personal that his matchup, Liam McNeely, dropped 38 points in Omaha. And Liam McNeely did not do that. Didn't even get close to doing that Friday night. And Jemiah Neal had a large part in that. So, all things considered, like he said, he was on the other side of it. He got lost in the moment. It's a rivalry at the end of the day. And two, he especially took those matchups pretty personally
Yeah.
because UConn said, hey, if you guys want to win, Jemiah's going to have to beat us. And he said, okay, no problem. Um, so that was huge. And Jason Green was so big in that game. Anyways, regardless,
What
um,
was that? Was that Jason Green's best game of the season?
that was Jason
Uh,
Green's best game of his career.
watch. That was my sense while watching it. I obviously do not know this as well as you do, but that it struck me like he balled out that night.
He had a career high in the first half.
Wow.
So him and like I said, UConn really, really, really hammered home the okay, well, we're going to take away Ryan as much as possible. We're going to clamp Steven as much as possible, and we're going to force everyone else to beat us. And that's worked for Creighton sometimes. It did on Friday. It hasn't worked for others, but it got them to Saturday. Wilson, their fifth trip to the Big East tournament title game, and that ended the same way as the first four did,
Yeah.
with an 80, not exactly this way, but with disappointment after an 82-66 loss to St. John's. Um, in I would say not one of the, inarguably the loudest basketball environment I've ever been
Yeah.
in.
It looked like it on TV.
Everything you think the Garden was on Saturday, it was that and more. Sam McCune texted me at one point midway through the second half and said, like, it sounds like the Garden sounds fierce through TV. And I was like, I just turned to the person next to me to say something, and I couldn't, like, they couldn't hear me.
Crazy.
Absolutely deafening in there. We use that sometimes to describe a loud environment. MSG was legitimately deafening as St. John's mounted that comeback through the second half. And all of that to say, Wilson, they're going to have to play another road game
Yeah.
because here we are now. Um, Creighton, a 9 seed in the South region, is headed to Lexington, Kentucky, Rupp Arena to play eighth seeded, underseeded Louisville 45 minutes from home.
That's right.
So
And
it's gonna be a tall task, man.
yeah, I mean, I think one of the obvious, plot lines here is
Oh yeah,
hometown kid, Bellevue West zone, Chucky Hepburn playing. On to begin the tournament on Thursday, he will either play his final career college game, which will end at the hands of the school in the city he grew up in, or he will end the season of the school, I don't know how far away, but close to where he grew up. It's one or the other, and that makes for a fascinating dynamic off the court.
no, it does. It does. I texted Sam on Sunday after the bracket got revealed, and just about Chucky and all that. And I said Millard North versus Bell West to play Auburn. Let's go.
Yeah,
Pretty much with Chucky and Jason Green. I'll talk about that in a minute because we'll dive into more Louisville Creighton specific stuff as the episode goes along. Um, but Selection Sunday for Nebraska meant that as we knew long before Selection Sunday, the Huskers did not hear their name called. Instead, they had to wait till Monday morning when they were indeed announced as one of the teams in the college basketball crown
that's right.
that will go down in Vegas.
Yeah, you know, I think this was pretty much the expected result for Nebraska. After the Iowa game, when that kind of stamped out any chance of them going to the
Yeah.
NCAA tournament for a variety of reasons. It was more likely to be the Crown versus the NIT. TV contracts, Fox, and Nebraska has made it clear from the very beginning that they do not want their season to end. They're a couple of teams opting out of these. It seems to me there are teams kind of calling the Crown's bluff on like, watch us not play in this tournament. What are you going to do
Yeah.
about it? And you saw that with Northwestern and Indiana and Iowa, which, to be fair, the latter two might not even have a team to field in the next couple of weeks because they're going through coaching changes. And these days, that means mass exoduses to the portal. But Nebraska has been consistent in its message throughout this whole thing. Fred Hoiberg, Jawan Gary has spoken on it that they want their season to continue. They want to play more basketball, and they're going to do so in Las Vegas, beginning with the game against Arizona State, the fighting Jemiah Niels.
The throwing down Jemiah Niels.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested to see how this works, like just to see how much like juice it has. I don't love that it's like the week between the Elite Eight and the Final Four. That
No.
just feels like if they did it weekend, it's like okay, it's more college basketball. It's not the main thing, but like they're gonna do it in a time when it's like the highest of highs, in terms of
Yeah.
emotion and aura and all of that will be going on. And by the way, here's a made for TV event in Las Vegas. Like it's weird timing. I would imagine it kind of interrupts like portal recruitment and just because it's
Oh,
a
for
pretty
sure.
valuable 3 weeks. I don't know. It's so much about this is weird, and I think honestly a little poorly conceived. But you know what it is? It's basketball, and Nebraska wants to play more of it. One Gary wants to continue his career. He has made that very clear, and they're going to get a chance to do it. And you know what? Maybe they get a chance to finish this deeply disappointing season on the right note. Have a little spring in their step, send the guys who figure to come back, like Connor Esigian, Berke Buchtengel, into the next season feeling a little better about themselves than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I'm most curious about, Wilson, is what if you're Fred Hoiberg, what do you tell your guys going into this? Like, sure, I understand that they don't want their season to end. and that they would have loved nothing more than to have gone to a second straight NCAA tournament. But as we've talked about extensively on here, the reality is they didn't do enough to get to that point, and they had their chances, and they didn't seize them. So if you're Fred Hoiberg heading to the college basketball crown, sure they want to keep playing basketball, but like, do they want to keep playing that basketball? What do you tell your guys? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably, the fact that there are six seniors on this team, six guys who will not play college basketball again after this year. And it's kind of, hey, this is it for you. This is the last dance. I'm sure some will play professionally, wherever that might be, but this is your last chance to play college basketball. There's no, you might as well make it a good last couple of games. And I figure that's got to be the motivation, right? Just make it count.
Yeah.
You will never get to do this again. This is the thing you worked up. You worked 18 years of your life up to, and then spend 4 to 5 to, in the case, a couple of guys, 6 years doing this. And now that this is it, so make it count.
Yeah, that's just the thing that I think, and that's not just Nebraska specific. I want to make that very clear. That's for like literally all of these teams in the conference crown. It's like, okay, how do we get our guys to believe that
Yeah,
we're actually playing for something?
yeah,
While also, like if you're Fred Hoiberg, if you're any one of the coaches in the crown, like sure, we want to end this season on the right note, but if I'm so worried about ending this season on the right note, next season's already withering away in terms
yeah,
of recruiting, like the portal.
yeah. Because that's a
That's the
very
most important
important like
time of the
2 3
year.
weeks. Yeah,
So like next year doesn't matter if the next month and a half don't in terms of portal recruiting. So that's the thing that a lot of these the teams in the crown are going to deal with, I think.
yeah, absolutely. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, a weirdly designed, weirdly conceived tournament. Um, Teams did not seem especially enthusiastic about it. I'm not speaking on Nebraska there, but just, Iowa,
Generally.
Northwestern, Indiana, all declining invites to it. Didn't really feel like, um, I don't know that that's really the reaction that, like Fox wanted from it. I can't imagine it was, especially the
Certainly
marquee
not.
program like Indiana, who, again, going through a coaching change, probably going to see some guys hit the portal because that's what happens these days. So yeah, I'm just interested to see how much, look, maybe there's going to be a wildly exciting like championship game and everyone will be watching because there won't be any other college basketball on. And after this, we'll say, oh man, it turns out the crown is awesome, but we'll find out.
Yeah, we will. Also, I got caught up in it because I didn't want to interrupt you in the moment. Did we get a Wilson Moore aura drop?
We did. I don't know that I don't usually talk like the kids do, but I guess it just came out there.
Man, it's that time of year. We're getting Wilson Madness Moore right now.
I feel like that's a sign just like the season has gone on too long at this point when I'm saying things like that.
For Creighton, it's going to go in a couple more weeks, Wilson, or who knows? I guess it's Monday. It could only go on for a few more days,
Yeah.
which is absolutely nuts to think that one, we're in the waning weeks, and we could be in the waning moments of Ryan Kalkbrenner's career.
Yeah.
Like that's nuts. Like Stephen Ashworth and Jemiah Neal have obviously made great contributions to Creighton over their 2 years and 1 year here, respectively, but everyone knows how important Ryan Kalkbrenner has been to Creighton and how integral he's been to the Jay's success over the year and where he'll end up in the program's history. Like we all know that, but in soon, um, maybe sooner than people obviously want, like all of that could come to an end. Like you're
Yeah.
only guaranteed the next 40 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
That's it. Um,
Yeah. So what what
so
what are you
that's
what
the
are
nuts
you
thing.
what are you looking for If Creighton wants to continue its season beyond 40 minutes on Thursday morning, what do they have to do? What are you looking at with this matchup against Louisville?
Yeah, I really it's deeper than this, and I'll get into it. I think whichever starting point guard wins that matchup, that team wins the game.
I like that.
Because I don't I would imagine Stephen Ashworth will not defend Chucky Hepburn. I would imagine Chucky Hepburn defends Stephen Ashworth.
Yeah,
And Chucky, I know there are not a lot of dudes in the ACC this year, or there were not a lot of dudes in the ACC, but Chucky's a stopper, man.
yeah,
And you wouldn't know it. Some guys do, like a guy like Jason Green, he's going to do that with his length.
yeah,
He's going to put his arms out and keep you in front of him. Chucky's feet are phenomenal.
yeah. His
So
hands too. Like I remember
yeah,
watching him at Wisconsin last year. Nebraska played them twice, and just he has the most active hands of anyone you might see that this March. He is quick. He has like these like cat like reflexes that he comes away with steals in situations that I don't know how many guys in the country are ending up with the ball. It's incredible to watch in
yeah.
person.
No, it really is. So I think that matchup is like the tipping point because Wilson, this has been an odd thing throughout Stephen Ashworth's time at Creighton. He is like such a different player, or I'll say his numbers are so different in Omaha compared to when the Jays are away from home, whether that's a neutral site or a road game, and Thursday will be a combination of
Yeah.
both.
I thought
Um,
he looked really tired against St. John's.
I do too. I do too. And that's partly because you had the double overtime with DePaul, and he didn't play the two overtimes because he fouled out early into the first, early into the first overtime. But he played 39 minutes in that DePaul game. He played 36 Friday night against UConn. He played 37 against St. John's. UConn and St. John's especially, those were physical defenses relentlessly coming at you for 40 minutes. And that's what happened. I thought so too, Wilson. I thought he looked a little tired because of that. Um, but the fact of the matter is he shot 6 of 34 from deep in their three Big East tournament
Yeah.
games. If like he was 3 for 19 from the field against St. John's.
It's
If that
really
happened,
hard to imagine them beating Louisville with that happening.
correct. Like if that happens Thursday, I and has to I don't again I don't think this is going to happen, but if he chases Chucky around a little bit, because I'm sure Louisville will try and get some switches.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how would Creighton win? It would take a Jemiah Neal 15 plus. It would take a Jason Green 10 plus, another
Yeah.
15 or so from Jackson McAndrew, and then obviously, um, a big game from the big guy. Like
Yeah.
you would have to be everyone would have to deliver everyone everywhere else to the point where it made up for Stephen Ashworth going 3 for 19. Um, but the thing is, those are 16 shots he missed, which means that those are 16 possessions Creighton did not have an opportunity to score. Like Creighton did
Yeah.
not score in. And that sounds like, yeah, duh, right? Um, Possessions matter so much
Yeah.
in the NCAA tournament. Um, so we'll see what happens for a lot of reasons. Like if Stephen Ashworth goes 3 for 19, or he didn't take a lot, he didn't shoot a lot against UConn. He was 4 for 7, but he was 3 for 16 against DePaul. If he has one of those Thursday against Louisville, like it's tough. It will be tough for
Yeah.
Creighton to win that game, and not that the Jays can't, but it will be tough for them to do that. And then Wilson, like aside from the guard matchup, um, which team's going to get tired first? Because they're both going to get out and run.
Yeah.
Like Louisville wants to let Chucky run in transition as they should. Like he can go coast to coast. He can drive in and weave his way into the lane and get to the rim and put it down. And obviously we've seen from Creighton all year that they love to grip and rip. Like we'll get an offensive rebound and three guys are already across half court and Kalk is
Yeah.
trailing and Jemiah Neal grabbed the rebound and here we go. Um, so that's another one of the things. Um, the thing is, Wilson, I don't think there are any Ryan Kalkbrenners in the ACC this year.
Yeah. Maybe Kaman Malawak, maybe.
Yeah,
Might not the same game as Kalk, but
no,
just in terms of like a guy you got to deal with as a rim protector and a
right.
rebounder.
So he would be the only one, and for that, like scheduled sentence here, it'll be a
Yeah.
scheduled tweet on Thursday. Feed Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like like if Ryan Kalkbrenner does not have 15 shots in that game, like something happened,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and I guess 15 would be quite a bit, but like if Ryan Kalkbrenner doesn't put up 12 shots,
Yeah. If it's like when Nebraska played Creighton.
right, right. So yeah, I think he should have 15 shots. Like I think that should be the thing, but he has to have at least 12, somewhere right in that range. I think I might be a little off on this. I can never remember what it is. I think Creighton is like 12-1 when he puts up 12 plus shots or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the stat is, but
Yeah.
when he gets a lot up, the Jays get a lot of wins.
Yeah.
Point blank period. And not a lot of teams have an answer for Creighton for Greg McDermott's offense on such short notice. And not a lot of teams have in the ACC anyways have a one-on-one matchup for a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner. Louisville certainly doesn't, I don't think. So it's gonna be a kind of, I don't want to say group effort, but like they're gonna do what UConn did, chip and front and crash and force Creighton to hit shots around the big guy. And that's kind of been the recipe for Creighton over the last few years, obviously. And when they hit shots, they survive a double overtime thriller with Oregon. And when they miss shots, they give up an 18-0 run to Tennessee in the Sweet 16. Like that's kind of the live by the three, die by the three that they've adopted during the Greg McDermott era. And it's won them a lot of games, obviously, but the brutal reality of this time of year is it could cost you a game just as easily. Because um, if you have an off day for even 10 minutes in a 40-minute game, that could be the difference.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it comes down to anything in particular. Like when they played St. John's, it was like, okay, they have to take care of the ball. They have to rebound. Like those are non-negotiables because you have to maximize your possessions against St. John's. I don't know if immediately any like key statistic I will be watching
Yeah.
for on Thursday, but that's the thing for me is like the guard matchup. Can Jemiah Neal stop Chucky Hepburn? Does Chucky Hepburn stop Stephen Ashworth? And and can Creighton get Ryan Kalkbrenner rolling with its season on the line?
Yeah. That I think that about sums it up.
Oh, and by the way, like whoever makes it out of this grinder, um, congrats, you get to play Auburn.
Yeah. Just a little
But
footnote to all of that.
Yeah. Congrats. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think the line's 2.5. Ken Palm has it as a 3-point game. I'm not sure what Evan Mia has it at, but it's going to be close, which is honestly kind of nuts because I think Creighton can win the game, obviously, like duh. But a lot of people had Louisville as like a 5 or a 6 seed, mostly six. Some people had them as a 5, some people had them down to a 7, but like on Bracket Matrix, which is the average between every bracketology, they were a 6 and they somehow slid all the way down to an 8. I guess because they lost to Duke without Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
Like
The bracket
I
was weird this year, man.
wasn't it?
Like the general consensus among basically everyone, even Greg McDermott talked about this last night because he's friends with Darian DeVries, that the general consensus among basically everyone was that West Virginia was in. And them getting
Yes.
left out was shocking. I mean, North Carolina getting in, like, dude, yeah, the,
Yeah.
there were some weird. I feel like more this year than last year. There were
Yeah.
some real head scratchers there.
I think so too. And I think that's the consensus. I think a lot of people felt that way. So this is kind of the like big picture Louisville side, Wilson, is that this is an opportunity for them to not just make some noise in the NCAA tournament in year one of the Pat Kelsey era, not just for that, but to show, and I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but they have an opportunity to show that the ACC was truly disrespected.
Yeah,
They went
yeah.
18-2 in that league.
That's crazy. In a power conference, I know this wasn't the greatest year for the ACC, but 18-2 in a high major and getting an 8 seed is wild.
And that's the point is I'm sure they feel disrespected. There's a reason that Creighton is pissed. I don't know if pissed is the right word, but there's a reason Creighton is peeved that it now has to go play Louisville in a road game,
Yeah,
essentially. One, because of the environment. Two, because Louisville should not be an 8th seed.
yeah,
And so this is a chance for Louisville to go show that the ACC was disrespected, that they were disrespected, and it's an opportunity for Creighton to, make one last run at that elusive Final Four
yeah,
and kind of walk through the shadow of valley of death to get there because
yeah,
that's what it would take with this
yeah,
path. And you have to do that more importantly while you still have one of the best players in program history here. Because the conversation entering this season, Wilson, was this is this is the team that's going to usher Creighton through from one era to another,
yeah,
regardless of what happens. They're still going to try and win a Final Four. They're still going to check off all those boxes. But the fact of the matter is, it was the transition from last era to next era. And Ryan Kalkbrenner has been a constant in all of that. Ryan Kalkbrenner will be gone next year, which is insane to say.
yeah,
Um, but the reality, as we mentioned earlier, Creighton is only 40 minutes away from that. And so they've got to make one last push before they enter a new era, before this era is definitively over. And it'll all start on Thursday in Lexington.
yeah.
Wilson, what are you most looking forward to going to Providence for the St. John's Omaha game?
I'm looking forward to a lot. I've been to I've been to the East Coast a little bit. I got family in Boston, but I've never been like that far north on the
Okay.
East Coast. Never been to Rhode Island. Certainly never been to Providence. I'm looking forward to seeing something new. Looking forward to seeing my guy Anthony Christensen, who covers Arkansas. We were just texting. Friend of the show, Anthony Christensen. And yeah, just looking forward to covering another NCAA tournament game. Last year was my first experience, and I think you learn when you cover college basketball, not to take this for granted, not to take that we do this for a living for granted, and especially that we get to cover something like the NCAA tournament that we grew up watching. It's cool. So I'm looking forward to getting back in there, covering another game. It's gonna be a good time. What are you
No,
looking
it
forward
will.
to about Lexington?
I loved it. I loved it last year. It was my first experience too. I like it's one thing to grow up and you watch this and with this, that, and the other, right? Like, sure. But dude, to be there, to live it, to like it's insane.
Yeah,
It's entirely different. I think friends of the program would know that I grew up a Kentucky fan. So I don't have any emotional stake in Thursday's game. Um, but I will have an emotional stake in the arena
yeah, oh yeah,
because it'll be my first time in Rupp Arena.
awesome.
Um, so that'll be awesome. I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. And I don't know. I've heard they have a few good beverages around that neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's a solid college town. I went there like twice in college, covering Mizzou versus Kentucky football. It's a solid college town. I think it's bigger than a lot of college towns. It's there are some options around there.
So yeah, man, it'll be the next you'll be with Omaha, and then I don't think you're going to Vegas, right? For
Yeah,
the
probably not. We
crown.
haven't talked about it, but I would say
Right.
probably not.
So you'll be with Omaha and I'll be with Creighton in the next, I don't know, 7 days or so. In one
Yeah,
way or another,
however long it goes until it
we'll
ends.
we'll be a doozy and a dandy and
It sure will
everything in
be.
between.
That
You
it
got
will
anything
be.
else, Wilson?
It's March, man. I think I am all out of things to say. It is March, so let's play some basketball.
That's going to do it for this this week's episode of Half Court Press. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to go over to omaha.com to read Wilson's coverage of the Mavs in Providence. And if you want to read about Creighton Louisville, you can go over to omaha.com and I'll have everything from Lexington. Thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you guys next time. See ya.